What was this thing that
So finished up Meb For Mortals by Meb. I don't know how to say his last name. He won the Boston Marathon and New York City Marathon at one point. It's kind of a shorter audiobook. It was maybe 6 hours long. I guess there was some substance to it, but there wasn't really enough to get me excited. I didn't really pay attention half the time. It was more of a book of what he does and giving you things that he does through his training and not really general tips. So like he was giving you what he ate, how he ate, what he avoided, some exercises that he does to strengthen his legs, or ideas like that, like, or how to train, and like do some like fartleks and different methods that he actually does for his training, more so than guiding you to a proper like training or food regimen. So that's where it kind of lost me. It was more, the book was about him and what he does, and if you read the synopsis, it basically says, I'm going to show you, / teach you what I do to get to where I need to be and the methods behind it. So if you're looking for a book to actually improve your knowledge or your training, this is probably not the one to go to, because it's more based off of him and what works for him, not necessarily what's going to work for you. But they are, I guess, if you want to look at it from, hey, I could try this because he did it type perspective, but in a broader sense, I wouldn't necessarily trust what he does per se, even though it does work for him. But on a broad spectrum, I would say for most people, it's not going to work. I actually would have liked to have had him talk about more about his races, specifically like what happened at a race, say at Boston or New York, that he won. Get into some details about the race and what happened during the race and maybe afterwards, and not more concentrated on the training, because again, that's what the book was basically about, more so his training and his regimen and like say pre-race routine and post-race, and not the actual race itself. So it really didn't benefit me at all to really listen to it, even though I basically struggled through most of it, because I didn't really care about, his training methods or his tips that he was trying. Well, not really even tips. I wouldn't call them tips. It was just like what he does and what works for him, more so than anything else. I would like to give more substance and be like, hey, on a broader spectrum, this should work for, people, not this is what works for me. If you want to try it, go ahead type deal. The person that was reading the audiobook, the narrator, was kind of bland. Wasn't really much emotion to it. So that kind of lost me as well. It's like you're just like, all right, you're just more or less monotone the whole time. And I don't know how many times they mentioned that he won Boston and New York throughout the reading. I would say probably 30-40 times at least, specifically throughout that like 6 hours, 6.5 of the book. So it did kind of drown on a little bit about that point too. It did talk about his age, because he is an older guy, his late 30s when he won, and like how he tries to keep himself in shape, and he just basically once in a while touched, on his family life or races, but there was nothing really substantial to take away from the book. Even when I was paying attention, there wasn't anything that stood out to be like, hey, I want to try that, or maybe that's a good idea. It was just basic runner knowledge. Like he explained what fartleks were, or you know, that he might run in the grass barefoot to help strengthen his feet. But nothing of substance that would make you want to go out today or tomorrow and try. Unless, I guess, if you're a real beginner, don't really know anything, you might want to try what he does. But even from listening to it, I really don't think it's going to work for 99.9% of people, just because it just seems, I don't know, bland. Because it, like, even when he's talking about like how many miles he does, or, you know, some of his like track workouts, it was just kind of like bland, and you really didn't understand the method or the reason behind doing that kind of stuff. It's just like, this is why I do it. If you want to try it again, go out and do this. But I was looking for more substance, even though this, again, the synopsis was basically supposedly saying that you know, you were going to learn about his training, but it doesn't really teach you anything. It just explains what he does. So I wouldn't listen to it unless you're really looking for something like down on your list to do. If you know, if you listen to like 100 other books, maybe if you're starting to run out of different titles, but you definitely could skip this one and look for something better. Again, I didn't learn nothing from it, and I was just bored basically the whole time waiting for it to finish, because it was just so bland. So that's what I took of it. That was Meb For Mortals by Meb, I can't say his name right, and I don't want to screw it up, but he is the one that won the Boston and New York marathons at one point, and he's finished some other top races. Like he got a couple Olympic medals. He did, yeah. So before I forget, he did win a couple Olympic medals, and that seemed like that could be an interesting story or topic, but it just was like short mentions, and then it was over. So take this review for what it is. The review is probably just as good as the book, real shitty. So yeah, skip it if you can, or if you're really a fan of his, you might enjoy it. But I would say even fans of his would be very disappointed in the audiobook, and even reading it would probably be way worse.